The Nature Conservancy is the largest conservation organization in the world, doing important habitat work around the globe. But right here in Missouri and in Iowa, TNC is making huge impacts on prairie. They're important partners in the Horizon 2 grant. On this episode of Prairie Profits, we're going to visit with Adam McLane, the State Director of Missouri TNC at Dunn Ranch near Eagleville, Missouri. We're also going to talk to Carroll, Presiding Commissioner from DeKalb County, about the importance of these kind of properties in rural Missouri. We'll meet Bennett the Seed Specialist for TNC at Dunn Ranch, and Perkins, the Bison Manager of the herd here at Dunn. Come along with us on this journey. We're going to learn a lot about prairie. We're going to try to find some quail and some pheasants, and we're going to get up close and personal with bison. Out here in the heartland, where agriculture drives rural economy, we are on the path to a future that not only produces food, but also renewable energy, ecological services, and improved wildlife habitats. I'm on a journey to tell the stories of Horizon 2, a climate-smart future for corn, soybean, livestock, and renewable natural gas production. I'm Brandon Butler, and this is Prairie Profits. Sunrise over Dunn Ranch Prairie is a spectacular sight. Bison are silhouetted against the skyline, and pheasants cackle in the distance. The Horizon 2 initiative is designed to bring greater value to our native grasslands. But moments like these emphasize our prairies are priceless. My dad got it for graduation in 1971 from high school. My uncle took it to college in Texas at Corpus Christi. It got corroded. My dad got it back, re-blued it, had the whole thing done to make it new again. I took it to college, kept it under my bed on concrete. It got corroded, had to have it re-blued and redone again. So this is a original Remington 870 Wingmaster that's been completely overhauled twice. So there's about $1,000 and a $150 gun. On Prairie Profits, we talk a lot about the economic and agricultural benefits of prairie. Today we're out here at Dunn Ranch doing what I love, which is chasing wild birds, pheasants and quail in the habitat where they thrive. So Adam McLane and I were born in the same town, Valparaiso, Indiana, way back in 1979. Yep. Graduated same year from high school, went to rival high schools, but didn't meet until we were doing conservation work here in Missouri. Fortunate to have become good friends, and today we're up on Dunn Ranch, one of the signature prairie properties of the Nature Conservancy. Can you tell us a little bit about this beautiful piece of land?
Yeah, well, first, glad you're here. It's a beautiful morning. It's a little over 3,000 acre property that we acquired over 20 years ago. It's a reconstructed prairie, so 1,000 of that unplowed prairie, which is pretty rare in Missouri. There's less than 1% of prairie left in Missouri.
So virgin prairie.
Virgin prairie. And it didn't look great above ground, but it had never been tilled and broken all of that, the soil rhizomes and everything that's in that super deep topsoil. So a really unique opportunity for us to purchase that in addition to a couple other 1,000 acres that surrounded it. And we restored that portion of prairie, used all those seeds to go through gradual restoration and reconstruction of what we're walking through today. So there's bison out here, there's prairie chickens out here. It's kind of one of those last wild places in Missouri that you feel like you really get immersed in what this landscape used to look like.
There's a lot of proof here that if you have the right habitat, you'll have the right birds. Quail are here, pheasants are here. This property is also going to be part of the Horizon 2 grant.
Yep.
So the Nature Conservancy is one of our partners in the grant, and you guys have committed grass from Dunn Ranch to be part of the pilot program to create renewable energy.
Yep. Yeah, and happy to do it. It's any time, whether it's nonprofit conservation groups that are trying to get grasslands or great habitat on the ground, or it's private landowners, ranchers that are next door, if they're trying to get better habitat on the ground, or if it's a business and a marketplace model that is trying to get conservation on the ground, we are all for it, and we're going to get behind trying to drive that stuff forward. So in addition to the seed collection here, help with restorations, a variety of other things, a big part of our work in that grant is outreach to community, and what better place to do that than here. We have great facilities, we have great examples of how these things have occurred in the past, and people get to kick the tires a little bit and say, is this something I want on my property or not? And hopefully there's a covey of quail that busts right then, and they say, heck yeah, I want this on my property.
Now, you've known Rudy Raceline for a decade, and you've watched this vision of his, this dream, become reality. Can you talk about that journey and how it feels now that we are at a place where we're actually putting grass back on the landscape?
The biggest thing with Rudy is to not bet against Rudy. Boy, what a brilliant mind to find ways to think years and years and years in advance about what's going to be needed for society at any individual time. And Rudy's great at that. So when Rudy has an idea and he sees a vision for 30 million acres across the landscape, it'd be easy to go like, I don't know that's going to happen. I've learned not to do that.
Yeah, don't bet against him. All right, man, let's go find some quail.
Love it.
When I was young, growing up in Northwest Indiana in the 90s as a teenager, pheasant hunting was a regular occurrence. My parents had property that had abandoned railroad tracks behind it, and we would walk those railroad tracks through the agricultural fields, kicking pheasants up out of the brush. Fast forward now 30 years, and there's no pheasants there. This is a species that matters so much to me because it was once there, but now it's gone. And I know that that can happen with other species. You know, turkey numbers are struggling in certain areas. Quail numbers have plummeted. It's this habitat that we so desperately need on our landscape for these grassland species. Not just the ones we hunt, but the songbirds, the insects, the reptiles, and the mammals that all call these prairie grasslands home. This property, Dunn Ranch, it's a Nature Conservancy property.
Yep.
What is the Nature Conservancy?
Nature Conservancy is it's a nonprofit that's the world's largest nonprofit conservation group. So it's in all 50 states. I think we're in 74 countries around the world, all one big 501c3. And we started as a land trust. So we still do a lot of land trust work. I think we've protected over 1 million acres through fee simple acquisitions of properties that people are selling that we think are in great places, or conservation easements. So we still do that work, but I think we also realize that these places are special, but if they're just islands of great habitat in a huge landscape that's not hospitable to prairie chickens or pheasants or quail or whatever, that stuff's not going to last future generations. So we have to think a lot more about, and have for the last 20 years, I'd say, about kind of the bigger strategies, like how do you feed the world? How do you have energy for the world? And so what I resonate most with the Nature Conservancy, our mission is to conserve the land and water on which all life depend, but our vision statement is a world where people and nature thrive. And I talk with my team and some of our supporters a good bit about like the difference between having a mission and being on a mission. So having a mission as a nonprofit are like your sideboards, right? Like don't mission drift, don't go out of your mission to do X, Y, Z. So that's pretty plain and simple, but being on a mission is like you see somebody flying down the highway going somewhere, you're like, man, they're on a mission.
Doing the work.
Somewhere, yeah. And I think that's us. Like I hope people feel that are close to us, as we are on a freaking mission to have a world where people and nature both thrive. You know, I love this stuff. I love hunting. I love getting my kids outside. I love all of these things, and I want them to have that. So I'm on a freaking mission.
Talk about your role as the state director in Missouri.
The way I think about leadership, my background's business and marketing and that kind of thing. It's not conservation science and strategy. So I view my role as resourcing those really smart, talented people. That's where, Raceline comes in. That's why I've been involved a lot there on the grant thing. It's a great collection of partnerships across Missouri and Iowa. Whole Grand River Grasslands has been really important to us for a long time. And this is a new pathway to add value to private landowners to keep things in grass rather than, corn and soybeans isn't bad. Back to feeding the world has to be part of the mix too. But these marginal areas where given the choice, an individual landowner would rather not plant corn and soybeans in there if they had another option. And that other option brought bigger deer, quail, pheasants, turkeys, beauty, then that's awesome. And I think those big marketplace things are possible, and why I spend a good bit of my time, thinking about how to help turbocharge that grant effort any way that I can and we can as the Nature Conservancy.
Adam McLane and I are cut from the same cloth. We have both become dedicated disciples of Rudy Raceline's vision for Horizon 2, which is to bring economic prosperity back to rural America through the integration of energy production, ecological services, and wildlife benefits. Kyle, talk about the landscape here in this Missouri-Iowa border region.
Missouri's got lots of different landscapes, but up here it's deep soils, rolling hills. It's a result of the glaciers that came down years ago. You've got pockets, folds with timber. In the old days, you probably were looking at 70-80% prairie over this whole country. So it's really got its own beauty. People might drive by it on the interstate and not really see that, but once you're here and you see the sunsets and you see the seasons change in those more subtle ways than maybe other places, it's a pretty cool area.
You actually serve as an elected official, presiding commissioner of DeKalb County. You spend a lot of time in the coffee shop, having a cup and talking about all the issues people face in this part of the world. How has rural economy changed around here, and what kind of new innovations have you noticed coming in that could hopefully make a positive turn?
The biggest change that I see is larger equipment, larger farms, less fence rows. Of course, when you do that and you're in this rolling prairie country, it's pretty easy to get into some erosion issues. We have some programs I know that are in place to kind of protect that or help with that. What I like to see and what I'm hopeful of with this, Horizon 2 thing is that we can have some innovations that incorporate or that include wildlife and protecting the soil, protecting our water. It doesn't matter how sophisticated our society gets if we don't protect our soil. And hopefully we can get some change involved where we get back to some good conservation practices that are good for the farmer, good for people that can still make a living on and live in this part of the country, but still protect our soil and water.
Along with all the beauty and the recreational value of this incredible property, Dunn Ranch is a working operation. Seed collection has been going on here for decades. We're about to meet with Keith Bennett, who spent the last 17 years becoming a prairie expert, learning day in and day out right here on the landscape, and a seed collection specialist. Hey Keith.
Hi.
Brandon Butler.
Keith Bennett, glad to meet you.
You are the seed specialist here at Dunn Ranch.
I love to do it.
Yeah, you said you were born and raised right here in this part of the world?
I live 5 miles from here. I grew up there. Didn't know anything about plants. I was just walking through stuff, hunting birds, deer hunting, didn't have any idea.
A big part of the Horizon 2 initiative is restoring prairie, which takes seed. And we want seed from local sources. So Dunn Ranch has become, a focal point of our seed sourcing. And I'm excited to see today how you collect some of the seed, how you separate the seed, and really where our feedstock is going to come from for restoring prairie all across Missouri. This AT Farrell Clipper seed cleaner has been in operation since 1958. It doesn't take much technology for nature to do her work, with just a little help from folks like Keith to make sure the right seeds end up back on the land. Nature will take care of the rest.
The good seed rattles down through that screen, across another one, and the good seed comes out around here on this other side.
So that right there can start a new prairie.
Oh yeah, yep. There's liable to be 40 or 50 species in that handful right there. When doing our major restorations, I would have 20 to 30,000 pounds of seed out of this cleaner a year. It sits there and these little oak boards just shake and rattle for hundreds of hours, and they don't ever break, it don't seem like.
Sometimes technology doesn't have to be improved.
No, it don't. This is listed as an endangered species in the state of Missouri.
What is it?
It's called eared false foxglove, or Agellinus auriculata is the Latin name. If you look under this screen, look at all that seed. I mean, that's powder. The first time I ever knew about it, Doug Ladd had found 3 plants, and he was all excited. And he says, "We got to have that seed." He said it's the second time he'd ever seen it in his life.
Wow.
So I went to pick the seed, and when I finally found it, and the seed off of 3 plants wouldn't even hardly cover the bottom of a bottle cap. We have it everywhere now. We have probably the biggest population in the state by far. We have way over 100,000 plants.
So you're returning it back to the land that it came from.
I am.
Is that just to make sure that you're doing some supplemental seeding? Aren't those plants taking care of that out there by themselves?
They are not. They have been declined so much over the years and killed off, whether it be with overgrazing, Roundup or whatever, row crops. I mean, they have just been killed off. And like I say, when I started, I didn't know any plant. I mean, and just loving nature is how it made it easy to learn.
It really becomes intoxicating.
It is.
Let's head out and meet Brett Perkins, the bison manager here at Dunn Ranch. We've talked a lot today about the native plants, the prairie, but it's the species of animals that live on the prairie that are really drawing us out here. We've been after quail, and to see the bison back here on the prairie where they belong, that's really special. The two are real interrelated. How do bison benefit the landscape?
Well, first, the bison were brought in because of the prairie chickens. The prairie chickens were here first as far as a reintroduction program, and management strategies before tried using cattle but cattle graze so much differently. And bison are very selective with their grazing, allowing sort of a higher canopy and open floor for prairie chickens to run through and evade predation.
So that's interesting, because you think about, like, if you put the right habitat back on the ground, then the species that belong here will flourish. But there's really species integration as well. For like one species to have what they need, they're reliant upon the other species that belong here.
Totally right. Yeah, I mean, over thousands of years, the system evolved to keep itself in checks and balances, and why species were there were because of other species that were helping do a certain thing. So, I mean, even in addition to the way they forage, bison will wallow, cattle don't wallow. So they'll create these dust bombs, you know, and they'll see all these depressions. Those fill up with water. Aquatic species use those that are used to being out on the prairie. They need that. There's no like static moment in conservation that you're all done. It's like continuously needs management, and animals that were part of that landscape can help be that management tool in lots of ways.
So Adam, I know Rudy has flirted with getting some bison over on his farm. I think we need to twist his arm a little bit.
Think so? Okay.
What do we
How
need
do
to
you
to-
room in the back of your pickup, or?
I'll ride one over there. He'll tether him up. So what's all this infrastructure here?
This is our corral system, and this is where we work the bison the one time of the year that we do. Obviously, it's a little bit beefier than a, pardon my pun, but beefier than a beef corral system.
I bet this is when you find out that the bison are still wild animals.
Yeah, it's easy to forget whenever you're out there in the middle of them, and then it definitely does not take very long for them to get riled up in here. We're constantly improving and making changes here to try and reduce the amount of wily that they are while they're in here. Because obviously the longer that animal is in the chute, the greater that animal is put at risk for injury.
Well, thanks for the tour, man. Really appreciate it. Learned a lot, and it's just great to look out there and see bison. Dunn Ranch is a portal to another time. Of not all that long ago, when bison roamed through tall grass prairie across much of our continent. While those days may be gone, we have an opportunity before us to restore some of our vanished grasslands and to return those natural benefits of healthier soil, cleaner water, and pure air. With partners like the Nature Conservancy working on Horizon 2, I believe it would be wise to heed Adam's advice and not bet against Rudy Raceline and his growing army of prairie prophets.